extremely towing.
51.
Fire's going across.
When we woke up, right, taking a look there.
This guy is a tiny little... Have a go at this little fella.
Get this panoptes snakes and your paleheads, which will be the last one for me. But looks like it's time to go.
Just had a pretty good Arvo cruise so far. Managed to see a couple of panoptes or yellow spotted monitors. Not much else other than those. We were hoping to get an afternoon strap-snouted brown snake. Unfortunately, no luck with that. As you can see, still covered in charcoal after chasing some monitors around. I wouldn't say chasing necessarily, but a couple of the ones that we did see, we wanted to get up close, and unfortunately the only way to do that was to actually get hands on them. But yeah, they very fast monitors, and I'm not the most stable person on the planet, so I tripped a couple times, fell into some bark, fell into some gravel, ended up being a bit dirty. But I'm still out here. Dylan and Tilly are out actually, well, cooking dinner, while I decided I'm not going to waste any time. I'm going to come around, herp, and try to see what I can find. Maybe and hopefully get an Arvo snake cruising around her and see another panoptes trying to go to bed. Thought I spotted one for a second there, but unfortunately did not.
Alright, so it was time to start the night, so we headed off to start road cruising as it got dark. Now, the hopes was to see an Arvo snake, maybe even a strappy, but we didn't get anything until it had just hit dark.
First snake of the night. Look at this little ripper of an animal. This is the Australian coral snake. Obviously nothing like the American coral snake. They're not nearly as venomous, definitely not life-threatening. Like Dylan said a bit earlier, he was able to spot this thing while we were driving. They're part of the shovel nose family, so you can see that tiny little point on their nose. Now, they're an amazing, amazing snake, and they live throughout the Brigalow Belt like we're in now, in the northern part. So definitely one of the top targets for tonight, but there are still some more snakes we want to see, so we're going to move on and let this guy get off the road.
Now, road cruising further into the night, we didn't see much this night because it was cooling down quite quickly, but in the end of it, before we got our final reptile of the night, we bumped into an unwelcome visitor.
Now this is an incredibly unfortunate sight to see up here. This is a cane toad, an invasive species here in Australia, and one of the most dangerous invasive species here in Australia. Not for us humans, but for our native wildlife, because these little glands at the back of their head secrete poison. Now this little poison, this little toxin, can kill almost anything that eats it. They can even kill fully grown saltwater crocodiles, and they're grown by the thousands. They started up in the top ends, they were introduced to actually kill the cane beetles, but they kind of became a bigger problem themselves, killing all of our native wildlife, and they've spread all throughout the country, all the way through Queensland like it is here, all the way up, and they're a really big problem in the top ends of Australia. But it's horrible, horrible to see them here. Have a go at this. Second snake of the night, another coral snake. Can't really get sick of these guys, especially since it's the only second one I've ever seen. Have a look at the size of them. They're not very large snakes, but this one's a lot better looking than the last one we got. Last one we got was covered in dirt, absolutely disgusting. Couldn't even see the proper bands on him, not to insult or anything, but this one, a lot more typical of an Australian coral snake. Absolutely beautiful specimen. We've already talked about them a little bit, so I'll let this one go on his way.
After thinking it was a bit too cold to road cruise anything, we decided to go on foot. We knew that there was a lake near us, so we were going to walk around that lake, eye shining, trying to see if we could spot any geckos, snakes, or even anything else we could find.
Just out here, trying to find some paddleheads. We're at a campsite, so I'm trying to be quiet. So there are other people in the area, and you can hear that very creepy dog out on someone's property nearby. But I did manage to eye shine this huge banded huntsman. I'm not a fan of spiders, but I don't really mind them being around me. They can stay where they are, and I'm not going to bother them. But we're going to keep looking in the trees, see if we can see any paleheads, and walking around the lake to see if we can get lucky enough to spot a keelback.
Now, unfortunately, tonight was a bit cold, so we decided we were going to wrap things up. With no luck getting any large lappets that we were looking for, our big venomous snakes, we decided it was time to head to bed and wait for the next morning. Now we're off, on our way to the black soil or moon soil plains of far west Queensland. Now the hopes of this area is to be able to see and spot an inland taipan, the world's most venomous snake.
Look at this weapon. This is the king brown snake, also known as the Mulga snake. Now this is a fairly small specimen, but here in this area of the Brigalow, they have this bloody lovely red colour. Even though he's called the king brown, he's actually part of the black snake family.
Now in this video you can hear him huffing and hissing. That's him telling me, get away from me. I am going to bite if you get any closer.
In front of me, I've got a lovely Mulga snake, or a king brown snake. Now these are one of the most venomous snakes in Australia. I'm just going to let this car go by first. This individual here, while he is still technically an adult, isn't as big as they can get. Now he's what we know as a red mulga, or a sort of Brigalow mulga. They have this lovely red, almost purplish sort of sheen to them. But this is absolutely amazing animal. If we have a look at him, even though he's called a king brown snake, he's not actually part of the brown snake family. He's actually part of the black snake family. This is an absolutely wonderful individual, and the scientific name is Pseudechis australis. Pseudechis meaning false echis, or false actual viper, which doesn't even make sense. But these are an amazing snake and an actual first for me, so I'm very lucky that I'll be able to see a red one. Hopefully we see some more ones in Alice and throughout the rest of the trip, but this is an absolute bucket list species for me that I'm glad that I could have ticked off.
Now, after stopping for that snake, we decided we were going to have to hit the road again. We had a long drive ahead of us. We still had another 6 hours to 7 hours before we got to the moon plains of far western Queensland. So we decided to punch it straight out there.
Ignore Dylan's music in the background. Camera. Ignore Dylan's music in the background. So we're on our way to some taipan country. Gonna go look for the inland taipan, world's most venomous snake. Hopefully have a chance of them this afternoon. If not, hopefully tomorrow morning before it gets too hot. But you'll see we started to hit some red sand. There's just big dune patches that come out, and it's just a lump of sand literally in the middle of nowhere. If you look around, none of this is sand. This is all rocky, small floodplains. And when it rains out here, these will fill up almost to the road. It can go over the road, but it's absolutely flat for nowhere. And then you just see these dunes. They'll come out of nowhere, and they're abundant with life. They're amazing, but they're nothing compared to the ones we'll get when we reach the red centre.
After stretching our legs at that unexpected sand dune, we decided it was about time. We only had a couple more hours before we hit Windora, and our hopes were getting there before dark so that we had a small chance of seeing a taipan just before the sunset.
Currently, we are in the moon plains of southern Queensland. This is the main habitat for the inland taipan, the world's most venomous snake. So we're just kind of driving along this afternoon. It's a fairly warm afternoon, looking in these cracks, trying to see if we can see a taipan cruising about before it heads to bed. They're primarily active during the early mornings, but I'm just trying to see if I can find one this afternoon, because it is a fairly warm afternoon and they don't like coming out when it's too hot. So we're just looking around in these cracks, trying to see if we can find one. We're in the afternoon out here, black soil moon plains, looking for taipans. You probably can't hear me over the wind because we're hanging out of the car, trying to see if we can spot these snakes, because they're more likely to be cruising around in the black soil than they are going to be actually out on the road. Bloody hell, look at that view. We're out here in the moon plains, or the black soil, whatever you'd like to call it. But this specific part of the black soil is what I like to call, what is known as the moon plains. So there's a very special couple of species found here. And the target for today, the inland taipan, the world's most venomous snake. So hopefully we're going to go really early this morning. We just got up at the crack of dawn, trying to see if we can find something. Hopefully we can see a taipan today. Absolutely stunning.
After waking up incredibly early, we were on the road in hopes of seeing an inland taipan.
Cruising across the road. Look at this, look at what we've just pulled up.